Give me a moment. All right. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Moses, and with me today is I'm assisted by my team. We have Professor Anne from the Economics Department, who will be joining the session with me, and we have our student assistants, Simi from second year LLB and Jazal from third year BA. And we are here to welcome you on behalf of the research for the case competition. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you for being serious. And at the outset, we had a few deliberations before arriving at thinking of the case competition. The first, of course, is we were focused on the stimulus package which was received or announced by the Prime Minister, and later which went on to become the talk of the town, particularly for startups, vulnerable communities, and more importantly, the entire disbursement mechanism with respect to the investments and finance. And given these aspects, we were particularly interested in how investments can flow from one industry or one particular vertical to the other. And at the same time, we were also interested in return on investment of the tranches of the amount which was being disbursed by the Prime Minister's office as part of the stimulus package, which was otherwise known as Aapki or Self-Reliance Campaign. And given for the first time in the history of India, we have seen such a huge stimulus package, and naturally, the world, of course, has witnessed the COVID-19 pandemic, which has shaken all of us across the world at unprecedented levels. It has changed the way we are working, it's changed the way we continue to live our lives on a daily basis, with the added aspect of fear, and more importantly, the concern on healthcare and its larger impact, particularly with those communities which are unable to access healthcare, which is either state-sponsored or even from private players. Now, at the outset, we believe that a level playing field is necessary. And this level playing field is something that we encourage people to pay attention to. And we are thinking of looking at it both from horizontal and vertical levels. From the horizontal level, we are looking at understanding the recovery plan for post-COVID India at a bureaucratic level in terms of the homogenization and, more importantly, the collaboration of all the various teams coming together from the government, whether it is from its ministries or a centralized effort from the Prime Minister's office, or more importantly, to realize the quasi-federal structure within the country from a state level. And what we have witnessed as part of this realization in the last about, say, from the onset, from December when the pandemic exacerbated across the globe until now, is that the pandemic has revolutionized finance, it's revolutionized public policy, and more importantly, it has shown us the concept of poverty, both as a dynamic and entrenched concept, at the same time to realize that none of the international institutions or world governments, or for that matter, even startups or even small and micro institutions or industries or enterprises have failed and we could not foresee this. Now, what we believe as part of the case competition, we expect solutions from you. And as we have mentioned in our various communication tools that we have used, either through WhatsApp or through the emails, is the research cell focuses on three key words, which is to think, question, and answer. And we believe that the core of all these aspects of looking at case competition is to ask as many questions as possible. We are not questioning the strategy of the government. Neither are we questioning how the entire bureaucratic force is working. Neither are we, as an academic entity, trying to interrogate whether the money that has been disbursed so far of 20 lakh crores, whether it's gone to the right stakeholders, whether it has reached to the grassroots areas particularly, or whether it has assisted in the development and some form of poverty alleviation with marginal communities. That is not the core focus, but instead to have a forward-looking, positive aspect to this competition. And to that end, we believe that your solutions, your pragmatic understanding of the problem, and to have a positive worldview. And, and in this aspect, we're looking at two key aspects. We want you to give us a bird's eye view and also to give us a worm's view, in the sense to give a macro and a micro perspective on how we can address systemic solutions, particularly the public policy. And with that, considering this is on the World Human Rights Day, on behalf of the Research Cell, we not only welcome you to the case competition, but we also celebrate and observe World Human Rights Day, and we encourage you to do as much good as possible to ensure human dignity is respected and appreciated across the globe, or in the local communities that you're associated with. With those few words, I would like to take this time to call upon Professor Anne from the Economics Department to give a few opening remarks, and we shall begin. Professor Anne, we can hear you. There seems to be a technical error with Professor Anne. She's unable to unmute herself, and we instructions for the participants. We're sorry, Professor Anne is unable to unmute herself, and when she can, maybe she'll be available to address that at the end of the conversation. Now, a few instructions for the participants. We follow the 5 minutes, 5 slides rule, and we are very particular of timekeeping. That's also because we believe that if you are making a presentation to the Prime Minister's office, where the Prime Minister is available, or it is a hypothetical scenario, we expect you to maintain time. And my colleague Cindy here will be displaying all the PowerPoint presentations. And before that, Cindy, could you please give us a participant order? Maybe you can call out the names first, and thereafter we can have a participant order.
Okay, first we have Abrar and Harshita going. Team Abrar and Harshita. Will I continue with the meeting? Shall we start?
No, please give us the order for first, and then
right. So first we have Abrar and Harshita. Then we have Angela team. Then we have Asrar and Steffi. Team number 4. Then will be Khushi and Vidhi. After which we have Kushan Bajaj. Next we'll have Nikita and George. And finally we'll have Purnima and Anubhav. These are the PPTs we have received.
Could you repeat that again, please?
Yes, sir. First, Abrar and Harshita.
Mm-hmm.
Second, Angela.
Mm-hmm.
Third, Asrar and Steffi.
Mm-hmm.
Third, Asrar and Steffi. Fourth, Khushi and Vidhi.
Mm-hmm.
Fifth, Kushan Bajaj.
Again, please.
Kushan, Kushan, Kushan Bajaj.
Uh-huh.
Next, we'll have Nikita and George. Nikita and George.
Mm-hmm.
And the final team will be Purnima and Anubhav.
Purnima and Anubhav. Now, yes, can we have a quick show of hands as I call out the team names, please? Yes. Yes, Angela.
Correction. In team 2, it's Michael and Angela.
Mm-hmm. All right, Michael and Angela, please make a note.
Thank you.
Now, by show of hands, please, please put your hands down. Can we have Abrar and Harshita, please? Abrar and Harshita. Thank you. Please put your hands down. Michael and Angela. Thank you. Asrar and Steffi. Thank you. Kushi and Vicky.
So this is Khushi. I am trying to log in, but we are together, so we can do it together.
Excellent. All right. Kushi and Vicky. Kushan Bajaj.
Yes, I'm here.
You're here. Kushi, could you please raise your hand so we know? Okay, there you are. All right, Kushin is there. Nikita and George. Yeah, thank you, Kushin. Nikita, thank you. And Purnima and Anubhav. Excellent, thank you. So all we. Oh, now a quick word for all the participants is we are interested in 3 key aspects, and you will be judged on these 3 aspects. The points will be based on 10 each. You will be judged on execution of the plan, implementation of the plan, and management of the plan. Each of them will be 10 marks each, and this is to the judges. And so today we will have 2 judges, where Professor Anne will be overseeing the process. For those of you who don't know me, I teach law, and along with me we have faculty member from our college, Ms. Sangeeta Thomas, who also is from the department here. So both of us will be judging you based on 3 aspects: execution, implementation, and management. Jaza, can you give us a quick heads up regarding time management, please?
Yes, sir. I'm on it.
Yes. Any quick thoughts on time management? How we are going to?
So I think I'll just give them the reminder when it's the 4th minute. At the 4th minute, I will tell them that their time is up. And I think anything above that, I'm gonna have to stop them.
All right, great. Simi, could you please call out the names as the order that you have mentioned? And yes,
Abrar
so
and Harshita.
Abrar and Harshita. All right. Can we have the presentation of Abrar and Harshita? So you get 5 minutes, and we will have Jaza who will be the timekeeper. And once Jaza gives us a go ahead, maybe by a show of hands, if you can give us a go ahead, then the teams will begin. That's all right with you?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Yes, George?
So I just wanted to ask her, so I mean, I can communicate with the person who's handling my slides when to move to the next one, right?
Okay, so with respect to whenever we show your slides, maybe you can just say the word slide, and Simi here will change the slide.
All right, perfect. Just the word slide.
Yeah, just the word slide. So slide would be your cue. Simi, that's all right with you, right?
Yes, sir, that works.
So we have to shoot right side.
Sorry, say again, please.
So we have to show the slides also.
No, you don't have to show the slides. You have made us the slides. We will display the slides. Whenever you want us to change the slides, you can just tell us next slide, or you can just say slide, and we will change the slide for you. We have your PPTs.
So we have to see the slides and say no.
Of course, that is how we will present. Certainly. Your slides will be visible on the screen, so please present. And one more instruction: please turn on your videos when you make the presentation. If it's a team, I would request both the team members to turn on, and if you're together, as is the issue, then you should both of you are available on camera, so you'll be able to see. All right. And Sangeeta, ma'am, are we good to go?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And Simi, could you please? Okay, we will follow this method just to ensure that there's no confusion here. Simi, if you can display the presentation first, and then Jaza can give us a heads up, and by a show of hands, we'll begin.
I believe the screen is visible, the slide.
Abrar, is it visible?
Yes, so the screen is visible.
Can you go into slideshow mode, Sibi? Or view? Yes. That's the top. Simi, I believe, yes. Yeah. Jaza, if you can give us a.
Yes. The participants ready? Are the participants ready?
Yes.
Time start now.
Okay, so quickly heading to. Okay, was it from my end? Was the disturbance from my end? Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, yes, you are. Please turn on your video. Please continue.
Am I visible, sir?
But you may continue.
Okay, so quickly starting with the COVID-19 situation. So we particularly know how bad the situation was in the mid of the 2020, wherein we've got a lot of unemployment issues. The GDP contraction with quarter 1. The unemployment rate was at its 45-year low, wherein the overall COVID situation has affected 53% of the business in the country. The majorly affected industries would have been especially the backbone industries of our country. That's agriculture, real estate, banking, and automobile. That's highly been affected by the COVID-19 situation. So the economic intervention, what the policy we'd like to bring it across to the panel is the first and the foremost we'd be like to focusing on the liquidity in the market, because the masses are reluctant to spend enough cash, as they've spent a lot of their savings during during that tenure of the lockdown period. The chairman of the RBI also suggests that small and weakened enterprises are to be backed by government support. So we've come up with a recovery plan. Um, yeah. So during the China imports and exports trade barriers, what the country has newly come up with. So we believe that our country is self-sufficient in course of in every resources. So we're trying to boost up the Atmanirbhar title, wherein we've allocating 5 lakh crore for this purpose, wherein there is enough, wherein we boost up the manufacturing industries, give it a lot of manufacturing, and which enables a lot of employment. Concentrating on the urbanization and infrastructure as well, allocating a rupee roughly around 9 lakh crore. So this again will boost a lot of employment in the country, as well as ahead the country with a lot of infrastructure, giving it a boost that it's required, which the COVID-19 has left it low. The employment aspect, again here, so we're trying to put up a lot of governmental factories, wherein we've kind of reflecting what China used to do. It's bulk a lot of products. So we are trying to implement it here in India as well. So making factories, governmental monitored factories, wherein a lot of products are made in India, and promoting the Make in India movement. Next slide, please. The next policy we would like to concentrate is the food and healthcare, where we were allocating around a 4 lakh crore aiding the below poverty line people. In the present Pradhan Mantri Garib Garib Kisan An Yojana, the scheme wherein we're giving a free LPG for the next 3 months, and the necessary provisions would be provided for the next 3 months for the people below the poverty line. And tax policies, we've kind of relaxing the tax policies by giving temporary credit cards, which will make sure that there is enough liquidity in the market. If there's enough liquidity in the market, there is a lot of flow of cash, which results in the boosting of the economy.
Few minutes left.
Right. So next, like Harshita to present the legal interventions.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. So talking about the legal interventions, we have some of the concerns that has to be taken care. For example, fulfillment of the corporate obligations during the transitional period as well as during the supervision, to maintain the company secretarial and the general governance obligations in a partially or the whole remotely working environment, as well as we need to take care of the legal actions towards regulatory compliances across the value chain when it goes to the anti-money laundering, trading supervision, as well as privacy and data regulations. There are few marginal communities that has to be taken care and legal action has to be taken. For example, for the children, women, we need to take care of the health. As we all know that children and old elderly people are more into getting this, getting a, they get, what do you call? Okay, they tend to fall more towards coronavirus. So we need to take legal actions to ensure safety and proper health care of the children, enforcing strict rules or laws to get rid of the discrimination and abuse. So now, next talking about during the COVID crisis, we had a few of the basic rights that was violated. For example, right to health, because it's a very important factor when it comes to this, as a healthy person can contribute to a country's economy, social, political, as well as religious and many other aspects, whereas an unhealthy person cannot afford to do so. So, right to health was violated whereas people are not taking. Yes. Yes. Okay. So right to health was why? Because the people who were in hospital were not taking care well, and there were many cases against that regarding that. Next is access to information. The right to seek proper information is given to the people by Article 90. The access to information on the issue of health problems in the country and around the globe, including the preventive and controlling methods, are also mentioned over there. Whereas right to privacy, this we have seen a lot of cases. So for this, serious legal actions has to be taken care. There is when we download an app called Arogya Setu, there we are sharing our location as well as if an infected person is anywhere around, other people get to know that okay, there is an infected person around. So sharing this information, it has to be encrypted. It cannot be shared to a third party. When it's shared, there are chances that the people who are infected may be treated really bad, and it affects their mental health as well as their family. So this has to be taken very serious action when it comes to legal procedure, as well as misinformation is also causing a lot of problem to society, whereas that has to be taken again legal actions in order to stop doing that. So these are the very important sectors when it comes to legal interventions. By doing this, by considering these factors, there can be help in recovering from the crisis that we are facing right now, as well as legal action. Okay, as well as legal actions to prevent spread of information on news channels as well as social media, etc. has to be stopped. Then monitoring and tailoring information provided to the public in a way that reduces panic and improves moral and positivity, and also actions to prevent human rights violation. With this, I would like to give an end to the legal interventions, and I would want Abra to talk about social interventions.
Participants, your time is up. Sorry, you're gonna have to stop now.
We just had a conclusion to be given.
The time is up. If you would like to continue, then the judges will decide.
Maybe we can give them 20 more seconds for conclusion.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, Simi, next slide. Social interventions, we'd like to control the social policy, what we're trying to inculcate. We've seen the daily wage of the workers was fixed around 182 rupees per worker. Now we've increased the daily wages of with of 20 rupees. That's 202 rupees per. That's 202 rupees per worker on their daily wages. The expansion of the PDC system. This is a system what we are trying to inculcate in the whole of the country, wherein our main focal aim is the weaker sections of society, wherein through this public distribution system, we provide enough rations, vaccines, and the necessary essentials that are important for the weaker sections of the society. It is through this system and the particular offices are set up in every region. The Arogya Setu app also holds the speedy system, wherein if there's a person of the weaker section of society, weaker section, he can put it across to the PDC and take the required help from the governmental agencies. The employment provident funds is given to the employees in 3 months in advance for their respective transactions for their daily needs, and we've expanding the health insurance of the frontline workers, especially the doctors, nurses, and the frontline people who've been closely working with the COVID-19 situation. So we've also increased their health insurance. Health insurance.
Okay, over
So
time.
yeah, that's about it. So.
Joseph, when did we begin with the Q&A? Right away?
Yes, sir. We can begin with the question and answer session.
All right. At the outset, thank you, team, for an excellent presentation. I was impressed. I can't speak for the other member of the Prime Minister's Council. And I'm sure the other member has several questions in this regard. My two principal questions that I want you to address is one, in terms of the timeline and in terms of the investment strategy, which was missing from your plan. And two, in terms of the target execution. Now, of course, your plan is too scattered within the time limit that you presented. We realize that. But what are the key areas and verticals that you think should need additional focus? And in case there would be another lockdown, what would be your measures to combat that lockdown or to revive the economy? And what would be your sources of income? More importantly, how can you relook at the economy from say vulnerable communities, particularly migrant laborers?
Yeah. So to answer that, answer that, if there is another lockdown, I would like to put it across that if there is another lockdown in the whole of the country, I don't suppose that India is ready for another lockdown. So we're probably increasing more of the preventive measures, especially tightening the Arogya Setu app. One, second, proper. More of an inspection kind of thing, wherein there is a lot of a regularity check for whether the people are wearing masks and maintaining social distancing. So I think social distancing is the only key wherein this thing can as well as function better for health as well as the economy. So maintaining absolute social distancing and finding people if they aren't wearing masks, and yeah, so that's a thing what we're going to do. Thirdly, if the people who aren't able to afford the N95 mask or all that, we're providing subsidy on the N95 mask. The funds would be raised from the International Monetary Fund or the WHO, who's granting us a loan of $1.7 trillion. So that would have those are the various steps we inculcate and not probably pitch in for another lockdown, because the economy, personally feeling the economy is not ready, isn't stabilized to be hit from another recession, to be frank, as because our GDP has gone into negative. Therefore, another lockdown would be a bit harmful for the economy. Therefore, tightening of the social distancing rules as well as sanitation would be clearly taken care of.
Thank you. I have one question for Harshita, and then my colleague will ask another question. Harshita, when you look at legal interventions, what is the current response of Parliament, and what is the response from the Legislative Department of the Law Ministry, particularly with respect to the number of cases that are being heard in various high courts and in the Supreme Court with respect to the pandemic issues, particularly with banks charging or recovering loan EMIs after the moratorium duration that has ended.
Sir, I'm really sorry. I don't know if the network issue is from my side or not. I couldn't hear you clearly. You can repeat it.
Yes, Rashida. My question to you is, from the legislative point of view, what is the current will from the Parliament in terms of how the Parliament is looking at starting some form of legislation to combat the pandemic, or will they go back to essential services maintenance and other aspects of the law? That's the first part. The second aspect is, what is the current situation with respect to the rising number of PILs and other cases being filed in various high courts and at the Supreme Court with respect to the pandemic and the prices of migrant labor? More importantly, the banks who are recovering loan amount, which was on moratorium for the last 6 months.
So I think she's disconnected from the meeting.
Yes, have that the answer for her? Yes.
So I'm sorry, you gotta repeat it again. I thought it was for her.
Well, I think you people were a team. So, all right. The question is, what is the current sense of the Parliament in terms of the legislative will, and how is the Parliament looking forward to legislating on the COVID pandemic, particularly on the rescue strategy that you just suggested? And the other aspect is, what about the alarming rise in other cases that are being filed in various high courts and in the Supreme Court on migrant labor, and particularly in the banks wanting to recover their loan amount after the moratorium period has ended?
Yes. So, sir, in terms of the bank recovering the loan amount, sir, the government has given a 3-month moratorium scheme, which will soften a negative credit impact in the country. One. Secondly, the loan amount, the RBI is been backing every bank, wherein if there is any, as RBI is a banker of last resort, so if there is any backlag in the banking system, the RBI will make initiatives to uphold the banks. Let it be in terms of the outnumber of loans that what they've given, the bad loans, what we say. For example, Yes Bank's been given a lot of bad loans, but still been backed by RBI, and it's still been existing in the stock market, which has never resulted in a delist of the company. And the legal aspect, what you're talking about, the present issues are mostly in regard with the COVID-19 situations, and sir, the policies are in making, wherein we particularly look at for the policies would definitely be made, which will involve the welfare of the people as well as the economy simultaneously.
Over to Sangeet.
Could you explain a bit more on how, in this present situation, when the there's a plan of how credit cards can be implemented, free credit cards, the time being for 3 months. Could you explain on how it would work when this country is moving on in a negative GDP, and with the fact of how recovery would be a problem, wherein banks again would go back to the state that they are in currently. It would be good for liquidity at the moment, but after a few months, recovery would be a problem because it is going to take time for the economy to come up. How do you tackle such a situation?
Yes, madam, to counter that, I don't feel that recovery would be more of a problem because one, we are giving out credit without the rate of interest, firstly. Second, there is a limit of 20,000 which will be given per individual, not exceeding more than 20,000. Wherein people can shop with that credit card only for essential goods. That would be your provisions and your medicines. That's the only place where those credit cards can be used. And the time frame given for that recovery amount would be around 30 days for you to give back the amount. And if not, there is a late payment fee which which we're gonna inculcate on that of rupees 50 rupees average on a transaction of rupees 1,000. And said that we know there are stubborn people who in the society that might take this as an undue advantage of the credit card. This would be monitored with the Arogya Setu app, where the government will be having their Aadhaar credentials, and the escalation team would track them down if the amounts have exceeded more than around 15,000. So this is the system what we are trying to put across.
Okay. Just one final comment from my end, and before we have the next team on board, is what is the current message that is being delivered across the globe by the Indian government, given the kind of crisis and the negative publicity that is being affected? What is your public relations team doing?
So the message what the government is trying to communicate to the country from is that we know that it is necessary for you to work in order to have a living, but do it in a procedure where yourself are responsible for your family, yourself are responsible for your own health as well as the others. Right. In today's society, I know that it isn't that much of a concern if the other person is getting affected or not. But I think on an individual basis, a person will definitely take precautions to if it's a matter of his or his family's health. Right. So what we're trying to do is live and let live is the slogan what we might put it across. And we'd like the individuals to take care of themselves by maintaining absolute social distance and hygiene, so that it is stopped at the minimum. The COVID spread may stop at its minimum.
All right. Thank you, team. One drawback that I wanted to suggest is in terms of rescue plan. I was looking forward to certain aspects such as how people revive startups or small and medium enterprises, and the revival plan, the recovery plan is crucial, because unless businesses don't make money, then it's a circular economy. People will not have jobs, they will not be able to go back and fund their children's education or the family's health concerns and other costs that are part of family. And they can be able to purchase goods, and it will be a cycle of poverty that will be redrawn or rewritten in a different manner altogether. So I think that was somewhere missing, or perhaps you did not make it clear. But that's the only feedback we would like to give from our end.
Yes.
Maybe. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Can we have the next team, please?
Just a small announcement. Participants, now the time has changed for your presentation from 5 minutes to 7 minutes. So you now have 7 minutes to present your arguments and everything. When I tell you that the time is up, I will give you a heads up at 6 minutes. And when I say it's time up, then kindly stop your presentation or try to wrap it up within 15 seconds.
We request Simi change the slide when we mention moving ahead. Am I audible?
Participant, could you speak a little louder? It's very feeble.
Sure. Am I audible now?
Yes.
So we request you to change the slide when we mention moving ahead. We request you to start the timer once we seek permission from the council. Good afternoon. Good evening. We seek permission from the Prime Minister's Council to present our proposal. I repeat, we seek permission from the Prime Minister's Council to present our proposal.
Yes, go ahead.
In our fight against the COVID-19 pandemic and pledge to rebuild India, the National COVID Commission has proposed to launch Pradhan Mantri Samajik Arthik Bima Yojana to increase the lives of the vulnerable and marginalized of our society under the Ministry of Labour and Employment of the Government of India. On the year of the 150th birthday of the Mahatma, we take it upon ourselves to achieve the dream he envisioned for us. Moving ahead.
This scheme is designed for one of the largest workforce of India, that is our migrant laborers, who constitute up to 140 million as per the 2011 census, or 38% of the Indian population. The scheme aims to guarantee socio-economic benefits, namely health benefits, cash benefits, and tax exemption under Section 80G of the Income Tax Act. This scheme can be availed at any post office in the country. As of 31st March 2017, India has close to 1,54,965 post offices, of which 1,39,067 are based in rural areas, and the rest 15,898 are based in urban areas. Moving ahead.
As for the Health and the Quality of Life Index, India stands 42nd and 59th respectively. Healthcare is a basic human right which is guaranteed to every person irrespective of their socio-economic status under the Constitution of India. Taking all this into consideration, our objectives of this scheme have provided a broad outline to ensure quality healthcare and social security benefit which could improve the quality of living during COVID-19 pandemic. Moving ahead.
Our motto, Aapki Suraksha, Hamari Kartavya. Your safety is our duty is our motto, which will empower us to rebuild our nation. We offer basically the scheme offers a variety of medical benefits such as inpatient and outpatient facilities, fatal and non-fatal injury care, and other long-term illness benefits as well. Under the maternity benefits, this scheme would be providing 6 months remuneration along with maternal expenses. Under dependency benefits, this would be covering those family members who lost their lives in the line of employment. The family receives widow pension, and children will receive dependency benefits till the age of 21 in case of a boy child and until marriage in case of a girl child. All these medical benefits, which have been taken into consideration, are supported by Article 39 Clause E, Article 41, and Article 42 of the Directive Principles of State Policy, which are mentioned in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution.
Under the social security benefits, we have retirement benefits and full remuneration benefits. The retirement benefits include pension and medical benefit, and the full remuneration benefits include remuneration for 6 months and an extended benefit for 2 months, which would be provided in case they are unable to find some employment due to some unforeseeable crisis. Moving ahead.
As prescribed by the Central Labour Commission, the minimum wage for the unorganized sector across India is 178 rupees. Taking this and the population of the migrant laborers, which is 140 million into account, the allocation for remuneration is 5.45 lakh crores approximately. Under this scheme, we have also allocated 2 lakh crore for the COVID coverage as we are nearing the end. And during old age where there is no source of income other than pension and a high risk of falling ill, it is imperative that the migrant laborer community is provided with ample retirement benefits. Hence, we have allocated maximum funds to retirement taking all these into consideration. Lastly, we have also allocated 3 lakh crores for other medical expenses, and we have also kept aside a buffer of 3.75 lakh crores in case of an emergency.
Observing the American model, a gift to United States, we have also introduced a new account called a gift to India, where the citizens of India can make their contribution and will be tax exempted under Section 80G of the Income Tax Act. We propose to bring this scheme into effect on January 30th, 2021, in remembrance of the lives lost due to this pandemic, and it being an auspicious day as national, and it is remembered as a National Martyrs' Day. By this, we have come to an end of our proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, participants. Now the judges can ask questions. The floor is open for question and answers.
So, so how exactly you're going to implement these policies?
Michael, shall I take that question?
Go ahead, Angela.
In India, we have more than 15,000 post offices, which is located in the rural and which we have plenty of post offices, which is located in the urban area. So we are going to implement these plans through post offices. These scheme can be availed by registering yourself in the post office, as we have the maximum number of post offices in rural area. So for any migrant labor or a poor person, they will be able to access this scheme easily. So we have.
No, my question is that you mentioned about maternity benefits, you mentioned about pension, provident fund. So who's going to fund these benefits?
So we have a 20.
For example, I'll make the question more clear to you.
Yes, sir.
For example, maternity benefit. Maternity benefit means you're not working, but you'll be receiving the salary, wages, right?
Yes.
So how exactly through post office? I don't know how exactly maternity benefits can be implemented through post office.
So for the initial 6 months, since this is a COVID period time and they are at loss of jobs, we will be providing them a remuneration for 6 months. And after they find a job, they will have to pay 1.75% of their monthly wages, which would be around 120 rupees, to the scheme. And the government will also put in 3.75% from their side.
Council, my problem is that who is this we? The government would be paying. Is that what you're saying?
This is our proposal to the government.
Yes.
But that's totally against the idea of maternity benefits, right? Because now maternity benefits, whether PF, maternity benefits, or pension fund, any of these things, you take any of these social securities, it's not the responsibility of the government. It's the responsibility of the employer. And that's exactly why I asked you the question, why and how you're going to implement this. Because if you're taking all these responsibilities on your head, the government's head, that means the government will not be able to have this much budget to ensure. For example, the PF fund in India is around 11 lakh crore rupees. PF fund itself. So do you think the government would be providing all this PF fund?
So we have also opened a new account called as Gift to India, where we accept contributions, and we have a 20 crore budget, which we will be utilizing for the scheme. And when we take off the burden from the migrant laborers, they would also be able to contribute to the economy. Now, since they are not under any employer, it is really hard for them to access these basic benefits, which is their basic human right. And taking care of them is the government's responsibility. Keeping all this in consideration is why we propose this plan.
Just to organize this, how exactly this is going to, what's the format of this event? Like, how long I can go on? Because is there any limit for that?
No, sir, not surely.
Okay.
The presentation goes on for 7 minutes, followed by question and answer sessions. And the judges can ask questions as they please.
Okay, I think what I think about your suggestion is that rather than government taking all the responsibility, it should be implemented through legal process, making new laws. And if you see the social security legislations throughout the world and also Indian legislations, that is making the employer liable. And what I miss in your presentation is that you don't have any concrete plans to change the structure of labor in the country. Why migrant labor crisis is happening? Because of the structure of labor, structure of employment in the country. That we are increasing the share of contract labor rapidly. We are increasing the share of, or we have a good share of unorganized sector jobs. So if we have this, and also we are going through an agrarian collapse. So without considering the structure and also the ongoing agrarian collapse, taking all the responsibility by the government, of course, the government is not having enough, this much of resources presently, this much resources to ensure all these cash transfers. That's what I think.
I think we have planned this scheme as per the budget given to us, which is 20 lakh crore. And we have even calculated the remuneration, which will fall under the 20 lakh crore budget, which would be up to 5.4 lakh crore if the government pay them 6-month remuneration. And we have taken this wage into consideration from the Center Labour Commission, who sets out the minimum wage that an unorganized sector unorganized sector wage worker would receive. So, taking this into consideration and the budget in hand is why we proposed a budget of 4.54 lakh crore as remuneration. And to keep the scheme going, like you said, it's an unorganized sector.
Council, what I'm worried about this proposal is that if we are not changing any structural problems using this budget, then ultimately once this budget we end up spending all this money, the same condition will prevail. It will be continued.
Yes.
So that's why structural changes has to be done in the particular thing, not just the cash transfers or not just, of course, for the short time we can't let people die out of hunger. We need to protect them. But at the same time, we need to have some plans for structural changes in the labor market and also in the agrarian sector and all the constituent parts.
Michael, do you want to add?
In fact, the entire basis for bringing about this, this scheme was, it's in fact when we were doing our analysis or our research, we found that it's impossible to implement a long-term plan for now because it is extremely difficult, which is why we resorted to a short-term plan. Short-term plans, recovering the economy step by step, and then moving on to a long-term plan.
And moreover, if we have an organizer behind this, like if we lend it out to the private sector, it would moreover turn into a business. And now, without the help of the government, the migrant laborers, which is the population of 140 million as per 2011 census, and by now the number would have increased. So, keeping that into consideration, without the help of government, the migrant laborers wouldn't revive themselves, which is why our targeted audience was migrant laborers.
Okay. Yeah. I'm done with my questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The next team can come in. I have no questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, respected judges and participants. I am Steffi. Introduction. the economic impact in the year 2020 in India has been...
I'm really sorry, Tejas. She's been having connection errors. So I just WhatsApp her when to start her website.
Participants, you have 7 minutes to present and let me know when I can start.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
Can I start? Good evening, respected judges and participants. I am Steffi. Introduction. The economic impact in the year 2020 in India has been disruptive. To bring economy back to normal stage, the government must implement many policies and must work to restore confidence in bankers, businesses and international organizations. The GDP growth rate for the full year was 4.2%, which is the lowest in the decade. The healthcare, education, employment and agricultural sectors were affected by the pandemic. Given below a few proposals which could be considered for the upbringing and development of these sectors in the society. Next slide. Proposals in the health sector. Considering the vulnerability of female frontline workers and community volunteers and cases of violence against them, measures need to be taken to prevent and mitigate abuse and gender-based violence. Second, sufficient basic amenities needs to be provided to marginalized populations like LGBT communities, refugees, migrant laborers, prisoners, Dalits, etc. Third, mental health action plan. Ensure that persons who were affected with COVID-19 are given equal protection under human rights and are free from discrimination. Legislations can help in the following manner. Promote autonomy and liberty of people with mental disorders. 2. Promote access to mental health care and community integration. 3. Legally enforce the goals and objectives of a mental health policy. 4. Establish independent review and monitoring mechanisms. Next, occupational safety and health. Ensure that the health of vulnerable groups at workplace are protected without any discrimination and prejudice. Equal access to basic facilities must be ensured to all, like for example, providing PPE to workers, providing arrangements for isolating suspected cases and tracing every contact, providing training, education and informational material about health and safety at work, including proper hygiene practices and the use of any workplace controls, including PPE. Next slide. Proposals in the employment sector. Government should adapt to cash transfers or unemployment compensation. Ensure that all children and families, particularly those engaged in the informal economy and whose incomes are affected, have sufficient resources to deal with the health economic crisis. Second, expansion of family-friendly policies like paid leave and sick leave. Government and private sector should work on in adjusting such policies and services, including extending these rights to more employees and extending the length and size of benefits. Third, the private sector should make investment and financial offerings targeting inclusive businesses that expand access to goods, services and livelihood opportunities on a commercial available basis to people at the base of the pyramid. Investment ought to promote diversity and offer solutions that help reduce compounded inequality and remove barriers related to gender, disability and other vulnerabilities that hamper financial and social inclusion. Fourth, lowering taxes allow more disposable income in consumers' hand. While consumers spend more, demand rises and businesses employ more workers to produce more goods and services. The government has already lowered corporate taxes to stimulate the economy. The result has been expected. More innovative tax measures that put money in the consumer's hands will stimulate the economy further and generate jobs. Corporate tax rates should also be lowered further to free up capital with enterprises, giving them an incentive to invest more, thereby creating more jobs. Fifth, partnership and cooperation among private groups and business affiliates, non-profit organizations, development institutions and government is important to ensure harmonized and coordinated responses to the post-COVID-19 pandemic. Lastly, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship programs should be modified to the local context but integrated in a spirit of inclusion into broader national level and regional level initiatives focused on entrepreneurship and SME development. Government must make use of public funds like PM CARES Fund to provide financing need by the entrepreneurs. Over to Asrar to deal with the subsequent slides.
Good afternoon, judges. So, dealing with proposals in education sector. Firstly, education officials should focus their attention on areas dealing with high incidence of child labor or child marriage and ensure all children return to school. As we have seen during this pandemic, a lot of children have been dropped out from school because the parents did not have enough money for basic necessities as well. So this should be focused on. Secondly, government should adopt mitigation strategies and ensure fair compensation for teachers and school personnel who are working for additional hours. Even post COVID-19, special precautions must be taken to minimize the risk of infection among children, and the benefits of returning to school should also be considered provided the rates of infection are really low and possibly a vaccine is out. Fourth, the decision to reopen schools should include consideration of the following benefits like essential services, access to nutrition, child and welfare. Counselors could be set up for social and psychological well-being, more counselors, reducing the risk of non-return to school, the effects of policies and measures on educational objectives and learning outcomes, remote learning. Where children cannot attend classes in person, support should be provided to ensure students have continued access to educational materials and technologies. This can be done by recording classes and sending them the videos as such, or online classes which are going on currently. That also could be taken as a measure. Then, school ventilation and air conditioning must be ensured. There must be adequate ventilation and increase in total of airflow supply to occupied spaces if possible. Next slide, please.
Participants, you have a minute left.
Okay, proposals in agricultural sector. To obviate the immediate concerns of scarcity of farm labor, policies must facilitate easy availability of machinery through state entities, farmer producer organizations, and custom hiring centers with suitable incentives. Second point, structural reforms such as land leasing, contract farming, and private agricultural markets need to be implemented or bettered to enhance investments into the agricultural sector and to push its growth. The government must also aim at providing better policy incentives to farmers to improve their standard of living and should aim at cutting down interest rates for loans taken by farmers or should aim at waiving of their loans itself, which have been taken by the farmers. The next point, farmers must be provided free medical facilities as well, as the country depends on them for its survival. To conclude, this pandemic has shown us a new world where the status quo no longer exists. Millions of people, including the marginalized groups, are experiencing untold misery and suffering. Rich or poor, this pandemic has forced us all and has changed our ways of living. And COVID-19's reach is only just beginning to be felt. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development emphasizes that, therefore, it is pertinent for the PM's Council to consider and implement the above-mentioned proposals in India in order to fulfill all the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 and avert such health and economic crisis in the future. To end, I would like to say going back to the normal is not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you, participants. The floor is open for questions.
Sankita ma'am, you want to start?
Yes. Can you tell me how exactly tax reforms or how tax would help? Because tax is one of the major revenues for the government. So how reducing of corporate tax or rather than reducing of corporate tax, the whole aspect that was told was more than corporate tax giving more employment. Rather than that, there was also because the amount of tax that we get from corporate tax and income tax is very less. The maximum income that we get is from the various indirect taxes. How can indirect taxes be considered right now? Because for most of the essential goods as such, there is no tax. The tax rate is zero. If that is the case, how can tax be reduced at this point of time? Because the ones who can pay are the ones who should be able to contribute at this point of time.
Steffi, please could you answer that question?
Yeah, so tax has to be reduced, especially the in corporate taxes. But I'm basically telling that when companies which have undergone a loss, for them the taxes has to be reduced, and so that they also can develop, and they can set, the government should provide incentives to them, like cutting down tax, which I said, so that they can set up enterprises, and also they can come up to a normal stage. And I'm also including right to equality under Article 14. It talks about classification. So right to so reducing tax doesn't mean that all the companies has to reduce the it's like all the companies has to cut down taxes. The companies which has undergone a loss or has shut down, the government must reduce taxes to those few companies which are under a loss, so that they can come up in the society, and also those companies can generate income in the future.
Companies that suffer a loss, even otherwise, can make.
Ma'am, I'm not able to hear you. Excuse me, ma'am.
Was the question clear?
No, I couldn't hear. I was unable to hear.
Yeah, okay. Even otherwise, there are deductions, various deductions available with regard to the losses that are suffered, not just by companies but by any business. They are allowed to set it off against the profits that they've earned, and only after the remaining amount has to be paid, if there is any, has to be paid as tax. So how would the aspect of classification based on losses or not having losses be even applicable? Because we have a system wherein it is based on the amount of profits that you earn after all the losses that you, after setting off all the losses, that we have such tax system already in place.
Yes, ma'am, but these but lowering taxes allow more disposable income in the consumer's hands. So when the taxes have been reduced, the
what taxes? Direct taxes or indirect taxes?
Direct taxes, like a corporate tax, income tax also can be deducted if the company was actually profiting before, and just because of COVID, all the laborers were laid off. Then the income tax, and if they were undergoing a loss, then the income tax, corporate tax, all can be deducted. And once they when after deduction, and once they overcome, when they revive from this economic crisis, then the taxes can alleviate taxes as how they were living before.
Yeah, okay. The thing is, generally, tax is, it's in income tax as well as corporate tax is based on the aspect of how much you earn. So if you do not earn in a particular year, you wouldn't be taxed also. The rate of tax will accordingly reduce automatically. It need not be brought about only for this, is my point. Yeah, okay. So these are, you can.
Can you tell me what are the measures you are going to take in agriculture?
Yes. So, with regard to the agricultural sector, we had thought that the first point says that we must facilitate easy availability of machinery through state entities like the farmer producer organizations or custom hiring centers, in the sense that we make it easy for farmers to get equipment which is needed for farming as such, and in the sense that even the price should be cut at some point, and it should be promoted buying such equipment and using as well. Then the second point, structural reforms such as land leasing, contract farming, and private agricultural markets need to be implemented or bettered so that the investments are enhanced at some point into the agricultural sector, thereby pushing its growth, because that's very much essential for the country. And then the third point, the government must aim at providing better policy incentives to farmers to improve their standard of living, and should aim at cutting down interest rates for the loans that have been taken or provided to the farmers, or should aim at waiving of loans taken by farmers. Because as we can see, a lot of farmers end up committing suicide every year because they're unable to pay loans, and the market is unpredictable. The way the prices increase, decrease. We have seen various reports where farmers are unable to sell their produce. So, in that sense, they end up earning no money at all after the produce is ready. No one buys from them also. And then
So
the fourth point,
can you suggest me any concrete step so that we can ensure kind of minimum price to the farmers for their produce? What would be the concrete step we should be taking?
Sir, can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It is suggested to explore leveraging NREGS funds to pay part of the farm labor, with farmers paying the balance wage amount to lessen the monetary burden on the farmer while ensuring wage employment to the landless laborers and workers.
No, my question is that now, at least in many parts in India, at least in cash crops, you can see that there is a lot of products but no market.
Okay.
Especially in areas like cotton, things like that. Plenty of product is available. I mean, the finished product, the crops, the finished produce is available, but there is no market for it. So, can you tell me any concrete step we can take, and also to ensure minimum price? What would be the method or the concrete step we should be taking?
Like the government of India has now increased its focus on nutrition besides food security and raising farmers' income. Changing the consumer's behavior with suitable programs and incentives is already in the agenda. For all these to happen, the existing landscape of policy incentives that favor the two big staples, of wheat, rice, cotton, as you said, has to change. Designing agricultural policies post COVID-19 scenario must include these imperatives for a food system transformation in India.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm done with my question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, participants. The next team can begin.
Shani, I believe Kushi and Vidhi have some internet issues and they will join us later. So maybe we can have the team after Kushi and Vidhi. That is, we can have Kushi and Bajaj.
Kushan, are you in the meeting? You're not audible.
Oh, actually, wait a second. Now you can hear me, ma'am.
Yes, you're audible. Please start.
Okay. Shall I switch on my video or let it be off?
The direction given by Moses sir is to the participants to turn on the video.
Okay, I will turn off my video. Okay, I'm starting slide, ma'am. Next slide. I'm Kushan Bajaj. I'm the chairperson of the COVID-19 situation, National COVID-19 Commission. And some of the steps which I want to take during this COVID-19 situation are these. First, I want to talk about the economic step which I want to take in the COVID-19 situation. In the economic step, we all know that due to this COVID pandemic, the income of the people has went down. Many of people are facing unemployment. Many of the people, like education, went to downwards. Like people are not getting proper income which they used to get COVID. Now this went towards below minus 30 degrees 30% to run their household. So I would first of all distribute the national income of the economy among the all people, like the people who need it, like poor farmers or salaryman, etc. I would prefer to take more and more taxes, like from the high class people who can afford during this COVID, and then I would distribute among these low class people so that they can uh, run their household in this COVID situation. Like even though in low salary, even though it would be low, but I would try my best that they could get a 3 time meal now and house and etc. And now, as you all know that prior to this COVID situation, in this COVID situation, many migrants were stopped in their labor places where they have to work, and they were not able to come to their hometown. Now, due to which they were getting very much frustrated. So I would, and since they don't have money also to travel by train, bus, so I would provide them some little bit money and transfer facility so that they can migrate from their place to their hometown. Now, next slide. Now, legal measures. Now, I will have to impose certain rules and regulations among the people to stop this COVID. Now, we all know that this COVID-19 is a transferable disease which occurs from one person to another. Now, lockdown. I would do a lockdown, but it would be only once. After that, the thing should be open to maintain the economy. Now, after economy, I would also have to put some certain protocols so that this COVID-19 should be in control. Like I would suggest I will make a compulsory that every place there should be a mask among. Every people should wear a mask, and there should be a 2 feet distance in among people. Also, like hotel, bars, any other places, like there should be a SOP guidelines of at least 6 feet distance in hotels, restaurants, bars. Now, in my locality, I've seen many people, many hotels where these protocols are not being followed. People are coming randomly. So I would do one. I would tell all the policemen of all the areas to spread around the city and give a patrol. And anytime they can check the hotel, any places. And if they found the SOP guidelines are not being followed, the license of the particular place would be cancelled. I would make that rule so that this COVID situation should be handled. Next slide. Now, social distancing. SOP guidelines. In social measure, I would follow SOP guidelines. Like I would make a rule that pregnant women, children below 15 years, and aged people above 60 should not come out of the house before the coming of the vaccine. As we all know, this COVID is a transfer disease, and luckily, oh, because this disease is dangerous only among aged people and the people who is in it who has some terminal illness. So I would suggest them not to go out, and I would give some proper medicines such as Ayurveda and other medicines to people so that they could take those medicines and keep them safe as much as they can in this COVID-19. I would distribute the medicine and medicine on the basis of the age. The aged people would get more medicines, and young people would get limited one, and the small people also would get limited one. And after this vaccine will come out, I will also do the same with the vaccine. First, I will give the aged people and the workers and the people who are inherit some terminal illness. Then young people. Then no, sorry. First, I'll give to young people because vaccine is a new thing and I can't take risks. Then aged people. Then little children. This was made.
Kushan? Kushan, can you hear me?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, so many of your suggestions are based on possibility of getting a vaccine.
Yes.
So suppose we have a vaccine. Imagine we have a vaccine readily available. So what would you suggest to take a legal measure to implement the vaccination? What would be your ideal legal measures to implement?
The legal measure, like as we all know, if the vaccine people will get the vaccine, then every situation will be normal. Now people are like many people are there who don't want to take vaccine. So I would say that for people who have young age like us or like 30, 40, I would say them that you have to take the vaccine. And, like whenever you go to anywhere, you have to show that certificate that you have taken the vaccine. Like the doctor will give a certificate, and you have to show the certificate that you have taken the vaccine. Then only you will allowed to be roam in the streets. Otherwise, you have to stay in the home. My first strict would be that. Then I would say that till the vaccine will not be proper. Like I would first suggest the young people to take the vaccine, and if the young people are satisfied with it, then only I would say the aged people or young children to take the vaccine because I can't take risks with them. They're already like weak in immunity.
No, you make a vaccine after a lot of trial runs and things. After that, only you'll get a vaccine, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you have. Maybe you may have such incidents in recent examples, but anyway, we'll make a. Suppose we have a vaccine after all the required scientific trials and everything. So now I can get information from many places that the vaccine created by Moderna or Pfizer, all these vaccines are costing huge amount, even for a single dose. So, what would be your suggestion to give vaccine? Not just legal suggestion that should we give vaccine for free or should we charge for the vaccine if we have vaccine?
Moderna and Pfizer vaccine are basically international vaccines. So it's I'm not giving 100%. It's 90% sure that the American company will take charge from the Indians from the Indian government if they will ask for the vaccine. Now, this vaccine should be given to everyone, including poor and rich, so that this coronavirus thing should go down. But if the price, suppose the price of the per dose is 1,000 rupees. Now, people many people are there who can afford it, but many people are there who can't afford it. So I would do I would send vaccine to districts, and I would suggest the DMs to give to keep the price of the vaccines on the basis of the locality they are sending. In the rural areas, the vaccine price will be down, and whereas in cities, the vaccine price will be bit up. Like that. So the poor people who don't have that much money can go to rural places for the vaccine treatment.
Okay. Thank you, Krishan.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, participant. We can have the next team.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening to one and all. In the course of the next 7 minutes, Nikita Sampath and George Thomas will put forth to the Prime Minister and his/her council a proposal of a COVID-19 recovery plan for school education with specific focus on government and government-aided schools in India. The objective of this plan is very clear, and that is to create a discourse on elimination of the trade-off lens set in by COVID-19 in order to ensure that education is given primary importance again through multiple interventions. The four areas of interventions identified with immediate effect are as follows. Firstly, the digital divide and learning inequality, to which we have allocated a sum of 50,000 crores. Secondly, role of teachers in learning, both in the offline and the online setting, for which we have allocated 5,000 crores. Thirdly, inadequate infrastructure facilities to maintain physical distancing in schools. That amounts to 15,000 crores. And lastly, the Kalpataru and Vidya Art scheme, which sums up to 5,000 crores. All in all these four schemes total up to 75,000 crores. Now, there are already multiple schemes in place which address many of these issues. However, this commission proposes to give added impetus and funding to these schemes, keeping in mind quality, quantity, and time efficiency. Next slide, please. Firstly, the digital divide and learning inequality. Number one, we first suggest, as far as policies are concerned, extension of the BharatNet project not just to the gram panchayat, but to any city or big town lacking internet facility. Number two, we suggest good quality cable connection for those children who especially attend classes via Doordarshan. The same must also be done for those who attend classes via All India Radio efficiently. Thirdly, we recommend 24/7 power supply under the revised Saubhagya scheme, which will also now address power output. Fourth, the Commission also proposes that states follow the Kerala e-Vidya scheme, which primarily focuses on digitization of textbooks and student notes. And lastly, as far as distribution of laptops and smartphones is concerned, states must keep in mind the objectives of the PM Disha scheme while doing the same. Next slide, please. Secondly, role of teachers in learning. Number one, the first policy measure that we recommend is introducing teacher training courses that will help the teachers to reskill, helping them communicate with their students both offline and online without any technical and administrative difficulties. Number two, to introduce a national happiness curriculum which will address the increasing mental health issues and negative emotions rising in adolescence. The Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi is a shining example of this. Number three, we recommend introducing the Fir Se Aao, Fir Se Padho scheme, which basically will cater to helping students to re-familiarize with previously taught concepts, thereby keeping them on par with the academic course. Fourthly, we recommend the starting of a scheme called Parak, which is taken from the National Education Policy 2020. Parak reads out as Performance Assessment Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development Centers. Now, these centers will ensure proper implementation of the previously mentioned measures that I just spoke about. Fifth, we recommend setting up of study circle centers in cost-ineffective travel situations. And lastly, as far as this problem is concerned, we encourage community learning in light of Ek Saath Sabka Vikas. Next slide, please. Thirdly, inadequate infrastructure facilities to maintain physical distancing in school. Number one, the Commission recommends that we open up schools in a phased-wise manner, keeping in mind the method of Vikalp schooling, or what we call in English alternate day schooling. Number two, in light of that, measures for physical distancing with compulsory wearing of masks, reduced school bag load should also be implemented. Number three, in case of lack of infrastructure in classroom, the Commission recommends open air schooling as a short-term solution only. Number four, school authorities must maintain a check-in and check-out registry for efficient contact tracing in case of a COVID-19 outburst. And lastly, the Commission recommends compulsory thermal screening at all entry points of an institution, no matter what. Next slide, please.
Lastly, the Commission recommends two schemes, namely the Kalpatharu scheme and the Vidya Arth scheme. Through this, we're going to employ the nudge theory of behavioral science. And the perspective is to basically give a nudge to the families through additional food security and financial welfare measures to ensure that the trade-off of and for education is eliminated completely. Under the Kalpatharu scheme for food security, an efficient take-home ration scheme as an alternative to the midday meal scheme must be implemented efficiently through doorstep delivery. In addition, the Commission recommends setting up of a national team of volunteers, the Bharat Army, in every corner of the country for speedy delivery. Additionally, NGOs, restaurants, hotels can be made a part of this army. Voluntary genie donations through food delivery apps must also be encouraged. Under the Vidya Arth scheme, the Commission encourages the extension of the Sukanya Samriddhi scheme by giving a nudge to ensure a yearly minimum saving from the parents. Apart from this, a remodeling of the KV Sanghatan's structure by increasing the school fees based on the ability to pay and reducing the central resource allocation in order to reallocate the funds as per urgent requirements in light of the pandemic. Students across the country, especially rural areas where they have been deprived of formal continuous education, have written to several state education ministers requesting to open schools, assuring them that they will be following the protocols. This must be considered in order to boost the foundation of the country's growth, which is education. Thank you.
The time's up.
George?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. You talked about how educational institutions can be opened up and there can be a system of alternate teaching. Can you tell on how that can be implemented? Because some of the issues would be, in colleges as well as schools which have large number of students in one classroom, and with the number of subjects that they have to study, it would be impossible to complete the syllabus within such short period of span if it is on an alternative basis. So can you elaborate on how it can be implemented?
Thank you so much for your question, ma'am. So, like our plan totally focused on government and government-aided schools. First of all, ma'am, what I would like to mention is that in light of the pandemic, CBSE has taken steps to reduce. That's the first thing, ma'am. Other than that, ma'am, suppose let us say on an average that there is, let's just say in one classroom there's 60 students, ma'am. I recommend, ma'am, that the first 30 roll numbers be also have to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday respectively, and the next 30 roll numbers be called on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday respectively, ma'am. Due to the fact that we've had a lockdown for such a long time, ma'am, I know that there are many schools that give Saturday and Sunday off. Although, ma'am, to catch up with the syllabus, we must have Saturday class because there is no other alternative other than that. And many of these children, ma'am, especially from government schools or government-aided schools, do not have access to the kind of digital technology that you and me. So the fact is, ma'am, at the end of the day, if India needs to rise, then they need to rise. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. If that is the case, what about the teachers? Because their working conditions, etc., have been changed. So, is there a policy with regard to the remuneration facilities and other aspects with regard to the teachers? Because the duties of the teachers accordingly will be increased on all these days because the teachers cannot be alternated, right? The teachers will have to be present on all these days. So, what is your aspect with regard to the various labor and related aspects with regard to the faculty and the other staff that are related to the schools?
Thank you for your question once again, ma'am. So, ma'am, the thing is, like when teachers come, so normally, of course, like you mentioned, ma'am, if there is one particular teacher for English for a particular class, that's going to be the same teacher who's going to be teaching continuously. However, ma'am, with the current situation, we will and we must have a policy in place that limits the time limit per class, ma'am. So earlier, ma'am, suppose if we had 40 minutes of classes, ma'am, I would rather suggest that we have 25 minutes of class. Because, ma'am, even the entire teaching pattern, as far as the entire question paper pattern is concerned, as far as CBSE is concerned, which I can tell you, ma'am, that does not require long writing answers as far as that is concerned. The new pattern states that it's a total MCQ pattern, ma'am, to which I personally feel, ma'am, that that's basically a pattern where I can have a teacher teach for 25 minutes, but at the same time, I'm going to have my students have to read all the textbooks thoroughly. As far as salary is concerned, ma'am, I think, ma'am, that really depends from government to government. I think, ma'am, like I as for every state has its own policy, I would say, and because education is a subject in the state list, I won't be able to tell you specifically, ma'am, about that, ma'am. Thank you.
So you're suggesting a syllabus change as well as an aspect of basically a difference in the structure as such for implementation of this.
Absolutely, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, the thing is, in fact, even before the session started, ma'am, I happened to go through a few papers, ma'am. Ma'am, actually, if you go through a few of the new model papers that have come out, they've actually started and have brought about a syllabus change, ma'am. So that syllabus change, ma'am, of course, if I were in 12th standard right now, I would personally feel it's really, really tough. But, ma'am, at the moment, that's the only syllabus change that you can personally go ahead with, ma'am. Like I mentioned, ma'am, we need reduced timings. So because of reduced timings, that means alternative days. If you're going to have alternative days, that also means that we need to have a cut in the syllabus. And when we mean cut in the syllabus, I just do not mean in quantity, ma'am. I also mean that we need to restructure our syllabus. Thank you, ma'am.
Are you concentrating? Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Yes. No, ma'am.
No, continue. It's okay.
Council, it would be nice if you can still show your presentation, because some of the questions are directly connected with the presentation. So, the court officers, it would be very useful if you can still show the presentation. But anyway, my question is related to your last suggestion. Can you show me that last slide, the last slide?
The last slide.
Oh, yes. So in the last slide, you are mentioning about using electronic methods, using applications, I think, to ensure midday meal. Am I correct? Can you explain it? Maybe something I'm missing here.
May I answer that question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we're referring to the food delivery apps that we're referring to is basically through the Genie donation. With respect to the midday meals, we want a volunteer army which will help in speedy and efficient door-to-door delivery of these take-home rations. Especially midday meal schemes have been hampered through the past few months, only restarting distribution again only in November. Hence, to continue efficient and speedy delivery of these, which can be an added incentive and a nudge in order for the parents to send it. Yeah.
Don't you think this suggestion is totally out of reality? Because even in our country, comparatively prosperous state like Karnataka, rural Karnataka is having only 2% of computer penetration in households. 2%. That means internet penetration is even below 2%. So don't you think, like, if we have a system of midday meal through government schools and other government funded schools, and also we have a PDS system throughout India. So why do we need to implement a new system when that system, we don't have that much infrastructure to sustain that system?
May I respond?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we're not suggesting a complete new system. We're only suggesting an extension of the system based on all the previous measures that we have suggested. Have to go hand in hand. You can't have a midday meal scheme completely independent of the other measures. These are incentives that we want to give the families to send their children to schools. And a large part of midday meals are often wasted. They're thrown in dumps in schools. To avoid all of these associated problems, we're just suggesting that anyway, since we have the midday meal scheme in place, a door delivery of these will, or say a village delivery, will help in efficient distribution of the food. And we've also seen that in spite of the Anna Yojana that was announced in March, a majority of the food grains have not reached the stake, the subjects. I mean, the people as such. So having a more organized system through the Bharat Army with tie-ups with the civil society will help ensure that this is implemented more efficiently. And we're not suggesting a complete new reform as such.
Yes, but okay. Uh, on your suggestion to include NGOs, other such platforms, and many other third parties apart from the government, have you thought about any policy guidelines to have all around policy? Because uh, in the recent past itself, using NGOs for midday meal schemes created a lot of controversies in the country. For example, recently in Karnataka, for example, there was a NGO who they had some kind of idea about food because of religious and other considerations. They had some ideas, but on a scientific background, if you look into the requirements needed for a child for the growth and things like that, it's totally opposite of their religious beliefs. So it created a lot of problems in the state of Karnataka, for example. So have you thought about any such guidelines if we want to include these NGOs and platforms to this particular scheme?
Nikita, do you want me to add to,
Yeah.
say something to that? All right. Thank you for your question, sir, once again. So the thing is, sir, like you were mentioning that, like, there was an intro that you firstly heard about, which had a little problem as far as food donation was concerned because of religious aspects. However, sir, I must make a mention here, sir, of one of the best NGOs, sir, rather we could rely on totally because their work is being totally based on this. Yes, I'm totally referring to the Robin Hood Army, sir, who have been absolutely into this, sir, that is taking food from weddings, restaurants, and have been at this time of well, tying up with various, may I say, food joints even, sir. In fact, may I tell you, sir, that last month itself, sir, it was this very big army, sir, and Robin Hood Army, sir, is actually not just in India, sir. It's actually in Pakistan and various other countries in South Asia as well. So last month itself, sir, the first thing that they did was they actually had a tie-up with Burger King, sir. And with Burger King, they had a tie-up. And if you are on LinkedIn, sir, you would have definitely noticed and seen this post. They actually, I think, served 250,000 poor children, not even related to, let us say, midday meal kids, sir. Just in general, poor children. I think their iconic paneer makhni, which is supposed to be like one of their best dishes. But having said that, sir, that's the amount of reach that people can actually have. Now the thing is, sir, the entire question of this Bharat Army is, sir, that first of all we have civil society, we have our NGOs, we have our homes, we have our restaurants. Now, sir, I would like to go to a previous point that you earlier mentioned, sir, that internet penetration is not so much in this country. Exactly, sir, the reason as to why we are also mentioning the Bharat Army. So, sir, the internet penetration, sir, to whatever extent it can work, we must definitely work it out because the geo donation thing, sir, Zomato actually started something that was previously known as the Rider Relief Fund, sir, which was a massive success, sir. It was basically taking care so in every order of Zomato from 10 rupees to 50 rupees, and in fact, it still continues till today. If you can donate, that they have that option of just donating. That's the amount that they want, and it's been seen as a real success for taking care of their particular families. I mean, the Zomato drivers. So I personally feel, sir, that a scheme like this would actually, may I say, awaken citizens more to another extra level because this is about, I mean, this is really about delivering food to to children who actually need it because these children do not just go to school for an education, they go to school for food as well. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you for that answer.
Thank you, participants. Can we have the next team, please?
Hello everyone, I'm Purnima and this is Anubhav and so we are going to start our presentation now. Can we do that first? Has our time started? Should I start?
I'll start whenever you start.
Okay, cool. Reinterpreting and restructuring development. Disasters are the most appropriate time for radical change. So, pre-COVID India has been dealing with an economic crisis with massive unemployment coupled with an environment crisis as well. So, we are suggesting that COVID is a symptom rather than an anomaly. Symptom of a deeper crisis faced by the world at large. It is a pattern of growth and development that the world has been following. It can be classified as the worst form of capitalism, that is neoliberalism. Essentially meaning that the state intervention is minimum and the corporates which run on self-interest and exponential growth have been taken over all aspects of our life, including health and agriculture. This is where we base our argument that there needs to be a radical shift from the current paradigm of development to one that is not only sustainable but is also socially accountable. Hence, we are asking for the state to be more accountable through more funding and scientific research. There has to be a radical reformulation of state and private relationship. From a Marxist perspective, we see the human rights as being closely intertwined with economy. Hence, we need a people-oriented framework as opposed to a corporate-oriented one.
Right, I'll just comment here and could we just stay on the slide? Is the slide on?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So essentially, what we're trying to promote is a paradigm shift, a theoretical paradigm shift, which has been a very neoliberal one. Which again, the point of the project is to it's mostly about the laborers and the migrant community and extremely vulnerable sections. And this sort of a policy, which is very state reductant, is not going to help us. And we anyway see recovery coming on the plate of India. But we believe that such kind of a recovery won't help us at all. And the only reason we have set up this commission report is because we believe we not only need to bounce back economically, but also keep sustainability at the crux of our art. Okay, you can move on to the next slide.
Sustainability. So there are many factors that the government has to weigh in while putting in their stimulus package. That is the immediate needs of the people, the local institutional capacity, the market conditions, and the infrastructure investment and all that. So the interventions include potential for creating more job opportunities and whether the government funds will help private finance or the long-term impact on the carbon trajectory of the nation. Basically, we are looking for sustainability in the broader term would mean decarbonization, that is a low carbon economy, and what impact this would cause on the physical, natural, and the human capital, among others. So, immense research and development should be funded in all domains, including agriculture, energy, ecology, water management, and waste disposal. And natural solutions to ecological problems should be supported and funded. Example: land sharing, land sparing. And there have been other ideas about how carbon dioxide can be held up and stored or buried deep under the earth's surface, and subsidizing and incentivizing farmers to use solar energy so that their production costs can be cut down by the reduction in electricity costs, and supporting green entrepreneurship that is so the businesses do not have a negative, rather a positive impact on the environment, and stop agribusinesses takeover of agricultural land and give farmers the autonomy over their land.
Right, if I can again add on to this, so it's been statistically proven in a paper by I think Abhijit Banerjee when he was at MIT that land's functionality remains high when it's divided into smaller groups, right? Because you can manage it better. If the land is your own land, for example, a farmer's land, he would use much more productive technologies to harvest his crops, and he could, for example. Think of more permanent solutions to generating his crops. Other than that, we really need to remember that there is only a 1.5 degree temperature shift within which we have to work to decarbonize our environment. So this sort of a report is really trying to look at structural issues, which is really long term. And like we said, like the normal comeback is anyway on the cards for India, for the entire world, but sustainability must be the highest priority. Other than that, so agribusinesses taking over, they tend to sort of remove slow working natural processes and adopt to, for example, petro farming and other chemical uses. So agribusiness is really harmful in a larger aspect as well. So yeah, and it also displaces natural cycle, which is ultimately it's a huge problem for India. Right. We can move on.
Next slide. Yeah, next slide.
You have a minute left.
Oh, okay.
Oh, just go.
Anu, can you go with the economy part? Because we are.
Yeah, sure. So, right, the facts are given on the page. So, we are trying to, even within a capitalist framework, we are trying to adopt something called market socialism, where the state takes a lot of responsibility. So, here we talk about agricultural economy stimulating that. It's again referring back to, for example, his Banj's example where he says biscuit companies are shutting down. That means the people right at the bottom, the farmers, the landless farmers, they don't have money. They don't have money to buy biscuits. So, that also has a multiplier effect. If, for example, if we directly send money to cash transfers to these farmers, they would generate a sort of demand in the lower cycle, and that would sort of generate an upward momentum, as opposed to the neoliberal trickle down theory, for example, where you try to generate demand at the top. So we are trying to incentivize micro, small, and medium enterprises. So a new progressive wealth tax, for example, would be like something which Piketty.
Participant.
Sorry. Okay, I'm just gonna.
You can, there are a lot of conclude in 1 minute. You can conclude.
Okay, so we've stated a lot of points which I probably don't have the time to read out, but there are volunteer programs, for example, especially based on the youth, direct transfers, and yeah. Can we go to the next slide, which is on health? So we have can we see the next slide? Okay, I'm just going to read out the points since I can't see the slide moving. So we want to again refocus our attention to research and development in healthcare, integrate modern technologies into government hospitals, subsidize medicines much more than we already have, because people just don't have cash right now. So apart from giving them cash, we need to subsidize a lot of other schemes and stuff like that. Legally, we need to focus again on land redistribution. For example, a lot of land has been taken away from landowners but hasn't been redistributed. It's been kept idle and perhaps for corporate interests to sort of latch onto that land instead of the farmless farmers. We need to protect labor laws. For example, a lot of laws have been repealed in UP and Tamil Nadu, for example. We need those laws. We need more transparency in financial laws, especially relating to tax havens. We want to keep a check on where the
most wealthiest people send their money to avoid taxes, for example. Is that we want to establish more national commissions to investigate further reports and developments on this. Apart from that, we want to have state authorized agencies which continually find the findings of the ground reality and report to this commission. Yeah, we can take questions now. Thank you.
Council, can you hear me?
Yeah, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm sure that you will not be able to present this in an actual Prime Minister's. I mean, if the present Prime Minister is having such meeting, you will not be presenting this for sure.
Sure, nowadays no one speaks up to the Prime Minister, sir. That's been reported.
Okay, whatever. So one question that many of your suggestions like subsidizing or providing assistance to farmers or all these suggestions in present time or in present condition is not just within the limits of the sovereign. That means the Indian state will not be able to decide on all these matters you mentioned alone, because we have a lot of international obligations, starting with the older version of WTO, from the GATT to WTO to many other multinational obligations we have. So how exactly we'll be able to continue with this kind of subsidy program if we want to? Because, for example, you take the ASEAN agreement we are having with ASEAN countries. So in order to give a subsidy to any of these crops mentioned in the ASEAN agreement, it would be very difficult, because we'll have to break that particular multinational agreement for the first time. Initially, we'll have to break this, then only we'll be able to. So how exactly you propose a delink from these international obligations?
Right, if I can answer that. So I think the first step would be, for example, we are in a disaster, and that also means that a lot of the treaties will have lost some value, and I think other countries would at the same time would want to develop in a much more sustainable way. So my point is that all existing systems have been very what do you call it? Based in a certain paradigm, a certain episteme which needs to be changed. So my suggestions come from that side. Now, apart from that, I think we need to frame, for example, in economy, I had written that we need to fund new institutions. That would mean like new economic institutions, perhaps trying to move, since India is a global south country, they need to sort of fit into a more suitable paradigm for themselves, build their own sort of institutions. For example, laterally organizing with alliances of the southern countries, for example, the BRICS nations. So those are some of the ways we could sort of reformulate the treaties as well as our goals in the future, for the future.
Okay. So many of the suggestions, many of the previous proposals we have received, in those proposals, one of the core areas or one of the repeating suggestion is to include more NGOs, more non-governmental entities into such programs. So what do you think about the inclusion of NGOs or other such non-governmental entities into program implementation? To what extent it would be beneficial in this particular framework of proposal to include them?
Right. For personally, I find it very problematic to involve NGOs because NGOs really are there are a lot of problems when we involve NGOs or non-state enterprises to carry out very state-centered work. This because the NGOs simply botch a lot of efforts. A lot of money go in, which a lot of lump sum money goes in, but when the money leaves from the NGO to the hands of the workers, there's a lot of intermediaries which take influence. So I sort of find it problematic to have NGOs working. Instead, I would rather suggest paradigm where we could get the military in, some sort of a military force in to carry out temporary work in, for example, dealing with injections or like food or whatever, because they're simply more disciplined and there is a higher check on um, a state authority rather than an NGO. So, and I personally think it's state responsibility. So outsourcing it to NGOs would really be detrimental to the success of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Anubhav, just a question with regard to it is more or less on the line of what Steve asked. We also have, other than GATT, we also have an agreement on agriculture that we have with the WTO, which deals with the various subsidies or the limit of subsidies, export subsidies, market access regulations, etc., that have to be controlled, right? Or we have, various conditions, which is much greater than what GATT has proposed or what we have with the, ASEAN countries as such. How do you think that, the aspect of when agricultural businesses are moved out or reduced in India, how can we cope up with the same, in compliance, being still in compliance with the WTO regulations on the agriculture?
Right. Again, I think we have really been living in a falsehood. I mean, I don't want. I know you're the Prime Minister's Council, but then in a very personal opinion, I think there are a lot of problems in the episteme itself. Hence, a lot of these arguments really need to be rewritten in a very sustainable fashion. And we should acknowledge there are global asymmetries. For example, in a lot of UN conventions, the global southern countries, like countries of the global south, have really made this point clear that while southern countries have an economic debt, northern countries have ecological debt, right? So we really need to reframe those arguments, especially forming alliances with the global south, who really again have all these other, like for example, the global north has moved to a service-based economy, whereas the global south is still a manufacturing unit. So there are asymmetries which we need to bring up as global south countries as an alliance to the global north, which and the WTO, for example, is a very global north alliance. Despite helping out in numerous ways, but I think the episteme is still incorrect, and we need to sort of reframe development and restructure the paradigms of development. And that would still go back to agriculture, I guess, because agriculture is the highest generator of global warming, for example. So there are a lot of these asymmetries existing in agriculture, for example. So we need to reformulate a lot of these treaties ourselves, and perhaps India could lead one of those conventions.
Okay.
Thank you, participants. We have the next team now.
Thank you, participants and judges, for your participation. We have come to the end of this presentation. Thank you, participants, for the well-researched presentations. It was indeed informative and interesting. I'd like to call Professor Moses for the final closing of the event. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Simi. Good evening, participants again. I have a message from Professor Anne, and I would like to read it due to technical difficulties. When she is available in the meeting, she is unable to unmute herself, and therefore I would like to read out a small message from her. And we are looking at the dichotomy between economy and human rights, and we focus on one of the latest papers by Professor Ivan Pavlovsky, who is with South Center in Geneva. And according to this paper, which is very well researched, economy with human rights is misleading because they can be aligned. States must protect lives and economies so goods and services can continue throughout the pandemic. And when it has passed, there are jobs for people. But this must be done wisely and responsibly with public health and human rights impacts as the primary consideration. There are a number of measures covering a wide range of economic, financial, monetary, fiscal, tax, trade, economic sanctions, and social policies that will contribute to achieving these goals. Now, these include boosting cash transfers, as some of you have mentioned, and health packages, expanding social safety nets, considering universal basic incomes, suspending mortgage or loan repayments, as the plan set down in India on moratorium, and including evictions such as the migrant labor and their housing policies, halting cuts in public or private provisions of services such as electricity and water as essential services, establishing a waiver, for instance, particularly from an international point of view, on the TRIPS agreement or the trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights with respect to medicines and other related technologies, suspending private debt servicing for individuals, especially with this high rate of interest, who are unable to cope with the public health crises and without income. Therefore, re-understanding the dynamic concept of poverty, implementing a moratorium on sovereign debt repayment for debt distressed low and middle income countries, for those countries suffering heavily from the economic fallout of the pandemic, establishing also universal healthcare coverage, which is another key aspect which many of you have touched upon, in line with international human rights norms, including the right to health and guidance provided by human rights mechanisms. Now, it is gratifying to see most governments considering and implementing many of these rights-based responses to the pandemic, thus protecting their people and their economy. Yet more international and intranational coordination is needed in designing the articulation of public health and economic policies in different jurisdictions in order to avoid a race to the bottom where lower health standards are offered to attract more investments. And this particular paper, this latest working paper, is well articulated in line with what Professor Ann has to deliberate today in terms of how we can relook at the policies and interventions that you mentioned. On that note, I would like to end the session here, but before that, I would like to present a vote of thanks. And here I would like to state my personal opinion. It's been an opinion with the team as well, and it has been an excellent learning experience. In fact, it's been a wonderful learning curve for me particularly, and we have worked on this for the last 2 months. And notwithstanding that this has been a truly enriching experience, what we have seen initially when Professor Ram and I have decided to come up with this plan of looking at a case competition, of looking at some form of legal interventions. But Professor Ram and I work in the area of law and economics, and we thought we'd bridge this gap, have a better dialogue between students who will be future diplomats, who will be future trade policy analysts, or bureaucrats of the government, and who will go on to work in public service, assisting with sustainability and corporate social responsibility, key areas which you have witnessed and referred to as well. But today, what we have seen is something that is beyond our expectations. First of all, we were impressed with the kind of 5-slide concept that you had really referred to. This is a concept that is generally used in many of the top business schools. In PhD scholars who are in their 3rd or 4th year are asked to present their findings of the last 3 years to fellow PhD members, and to prevent a lot of legalese and unnecessary aspects, but to stick to core aspects of their research, to look at the research question, to look at their hypotheses, and more importantly, to look at methodology and eventually come to a conclusion of what the study is. Now, of course, that is done at a much more advanced level, a lot of higher level thinking that goes there, because they have spent a lot of time for the last at least 3 to 4 years in rigorous analysis of methods and data. We were very apprehensive when we wanted to introduce this rule of 5 minutes, 5 slides rule. Given the kind of slides we saw, we decided to extend the time limit from 5 to 7. And of course, with respect to the judges' interventions and the deliberations as well. And what we have seen is, economic, social, ideological, market approaches that have surpassed the traditional thinking. And that is a positive trend in the way art students at Joseph's Law School can think and analyze. And so for that simple reason, on behalf of all of us, and on behalf of all of you, I would like to thank you all for putting up such an excellent show. And before that, this show could not have been possible without Professor Sankita Thomas and Professor Sudhir Sudhakar, who, in spite of their busy academic schedules, have been kind enough to sit with us today and judge and ask some very pertinent questions, which I hope has stirred your thinking to dive deeper into these questions and derive answers. And this could not have gone in real time live streaming of the college YouTube channel for correction from 30 who happens to join his classmate as well. And Parikshit, thank you so much for helping us with the technical aspects and for live streaming that we both have such short notice. And Simi Zachariah and Jaza Sarah, both of whom have been very supportive in terms of right from planning the entire event all the way to timekeeping and to displaying slides, more importantly, for being a backbone of this set. We owe and we don't know how we can repay, but we should in this entire academic year. And on that note, the results will be announced 2 days from now. We will stay in touch through the WhatsApp group that we have created, and once this is around, we will terminate. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, and we look forward to your discussions and interventions once the college reopens. Thank you.